There we go. That's what we want to see. So you fight in the. This is your normal for you? Yeah.
It's very wide.
It's the same size always or not? This is the same.
This is a 24-foot octagon. So when you're watching most matches in the cage, they happen within a 24-foot octagon. The UFC does use a 30-foot octagon for their big pay-per-view shows,
okay.
But all their fight night shows and their smaller shows are actually done in the 24-foot octagon.
Right.
So this is probably the most universally used size within a MMA cage match,
yeah,
as
right.
such.
And does most of the fighting happen? I mean, I've obviously watched it, but most of the fighting happen out here, or do you use the fence, the cage edges for any kind of tactics?
It comes down to your tactical game plan. Yeah. Technically, if you're a good striker, the larger octagon gives you a bit of the ability to move around and create space, which is a good advantage. If you're a striker, you keep your distance, you hit, you tag, you run, hit and tag, run. Nice and simple. If you're more of a wrestler, then you like to press, and you can do what's called a grinding, where you actually press your opponent against the cage, mash panels, keeping them there, using some dirty boxing techniques to work them over. You might then drag them down from the cage and place them on the mat. Once the fight hits the ground, you can use the cage as a bit of an offensive weapon by positioning your opponent towards it in a way that they can't stand up, or the opponent could use it as a defensive weapon. Standing up against the cage is quite a well-trained technique these days, so you need to be able to have a bit of cage craft whenever you're fighting in an octagon. Yeah, so it's quite important.
I got a question which is more like there's a lot of fans out there might be coming to this fight for the first time online and checking it out. Like, when you guys hit each other, I mean, it looks pretty serious, you know? I mean, I don't...
It is serious.
Tell us how, I mean, if you cop a couple, how much training do you need to do to be able to cop 2 or 3 pretty big hits but keep going?
One of the biggest things in an MMA match or a boxing match, kickboxing match, is your training takes over once you step past a certain mindset. You should be able to just perform exactly as you've trained. So when you do take damage, you shouldn't be thinking of damage. If you're starting to think about how hurt I'm getting, you're losing the fight. Right. Okay. You should always be thinking about how much you can outmaneuver your opponent, strike your opponent, out-grapple your opponent in order to make sure that you're winning the match. Yes, there is going to be